Hi, I'm Roland Leggat from Insight Australia, and today I'm joined by my colleague Keira Hajinikitas, who's been running Copilot for a couple of months now, where I've been running Copilot in Office for about 8 months. And I know, Keira, you've got a few questions that you want to ask about how Copilot works in the Office 365 environment. So, Keira, what are your questions?
Yes, thank you, Roland. Excited to be here. So I do have a couple of burning questions. My first one is, how does Copilot access and use my data?
That's a good question and an important one, because the difference between artificial intelligence engines that work out on the internet and are for free and Copilot in Office is Copilot in Office uses the thing called the semantic index and the Office graph to access your content. So based on where you are in the Active Directory structure, based on what documents you and the co-workers who work with you have recently accessed, Copilot can use that set and setting or that content and context to help create documents. Now, what data am I talking about? Well, we store our data in Teams, OneDrive, SharePoint, and of course, Exchange in the information store on the back end. All of those data sources or data lakes can be accessed by Copilot, and Copilot will respect all of your security and your permissions. So the salient point there is, if you don't have access to it, Copilot won't have access to it. All right, so I know that's the first of your questions.
Yes.
What's your next question?
Okay, thank you, Roland. So I hear this a lot from customers. What is the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot?
That's a very good question. So my rule of thumb is, if you're not paying for it, you're not the customer, you're the product being sold. So if Keira does yoga videos on Instagram, essentially Keira is not the customer for Instagram. She's the product being sold, her yoga videos. By the same token, unless you're paying for ChatGPT or another AI service, you are essentially being used to crowdsource and train a large language model, whereas Copilot in Office maintains the security boundary of your Office 365 and your Azure tenant, and as per your previous question, can also access your intellectual property that is sitting in a data silo or a data lake within Office 365. So Copilot in Office, even the Copilot in Bing, is a paid-for service, and as such, you have commercial data protection, and you're not giving away your intellectual property to ChatGPT. All right, I know you got another question.
I'm definitely sticking to Copilot than ChatGPT, that's for sure. So my other question is around, what are the technical requirements that I need to input to get ready for Copilot?
Okay, so although Copilot's a technology that is being released, a lot of the foundation work has to do with your data, this type of change management, and the processes for using Copilot. Strictly speaking, what do I need for Copilot? Well, I need an Office 365 license, E3, E5, a Business Premium, Business Standard. I need an identity in Intra or Azure Active Directory. Copilot will run under your identity, Keira. So it'll use your SID, your security identifier, or your GUID, your global unique identifier, and access content based on what files you have permission to. If you can't see it, Copilot can't see it. It's not going to go dig around in stuff that you don't have access to. Then I need the latest version of Outlook, the latest version of Teams, and you're pretty much ready to go. It's your data that's important. Your data is the fuel that drives the AI engine that is Copilot. So making sure you've got all of your data in the cloud, making sure you're using the correct versions of files. Copilot will only use the most up-to-date version of a file. So where people mess up, some people, Keira, they attach a file to an email and send it out to 70 people. I end up with 30 different copies of a file with the same name, but different content in it on my network. That's when we start to confuse Copilot. However, if you emailed me the URL, the Uniform Resource Locator, or the link to where the file exists in the cloud, I maintain my single point of truth, and Copilot will only ever use the latest version.
So moving everything to the cloud is important.
Moving everything to the cloud is so important.
Yeah.
Copilot can't access stuff that's sitting on a map network drive on premise.
Okay.
It can access stuff in another cloud environment like AWS or Azure File Services, but currently it can't access anything on-prem, and I'm unsure if it ever will be able to do that.
Amazing.
All right, we got time for one more question.
Yes, one more question. So, prompt engineering. How can I get this right so I get the best output?
Okay, so prompt engineering is a skill that every single one of us has to master this year, okay? It's called NLP, or natural language processing, not neuro-linguistic programming, natural language processing. And with most of my prompts, I have like 3 parts to a prompt. My first part is act like a marketing consultant. Then I've got to be specific, use correct spelling, and I would say something like, create a business proposal for me for running a yoga studio on the northern beaches in Sydney, and do a comparison with all other yoga studios within a 15-kilometer radius. All that information is publicly available on the internet, so Copilot will get it. And the third thing I often do in a prompt is tell my AI assistant that is Copilot to ask me any questions it's got about the content I wanted to create. So be specific with your prompts. You know what I do as a trick? I sometimes ask Copilot, I give Copilot a prompt and say, how can you make this prompt better? So I use AI to turn it on itself to make a better prompt. So that's one of my top tips. I often do that. So any other questions?
No, that's everything. And I know you have some webinars as well that you'll be deep diving into this. So I'll be sure to watch them and check it out.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us today. Have a magical day.